Doing operations with fractions can be really hard work. Often the methods used focus more on the answer than the understanding of what's actually happening. Students are taught tricks and rules and told to memorize them to work out the answers. In this series of videos, I'm going to show you and your students how you can use Keynote to create your very own fractions animations. These visualize what's actually happening when you add, subtract, multiply or divide fractions, and they can be lots of fun and get the kids thinking deeply about what they're doing with their mathematics. Creating fraction animations with Keynote, multiplying fractions. Once again, this is a concept that students often struggle with, and making animations in Keynote is a nice way that they can understand the actual concepts. Today we're going to use a bit of a different technique. We're going to use something called Magic Move. So that's another action or animation. You've got an option to use Magic Move, and I'll show you how that works. Let's start by making our fractions first of all. 2 1/6 multiplied by 4. And the way I like to make this, like all of these animations, is to start with my numbers, and I'll go to Format, and I always like a blank fraction to start with a border. I copy that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, line all these up, so I've got my frame that I can then make my fractions within. So there's my shape cut into 6. I'll copy one of those, add the color, re-add the border, then I can copy and paste those over the top to make my 2 1/6. And here's one that I made a little bit earlier. Okay, so the way that Magic Move works is it takes what's happening on one slide and it looks to the next slide and it looks for any differences. So if you've got an object, say on this slide, and it also appears on this slide, if I move that object on the second slide, when I apply animation Magic Move, it will actually automatically add the animation for that object. So I can press play now. When I click, it'll add the animation. So this can be really handy when you're doing multiple objects, or you're doing lots of a bit more complicated animations. So the way I use this is that I take my 2 1/6 multiplied by 4, and what I want to do is I want to actually solve the sum or get the answer first of all. I'm going to group my two wholes together, and I'm going to copy and paste it 3 times. So I want to start with, have a think about what's my final animation going to look like. It's going to look like, the answer is obviously going to be 8 4/6. There's my 8. I'm not going to group this final 1/6 because when I paste it and add it along, get them all lined up, I want to be able to move those individual boxes to group them together. Alright, so now I've made my answer, but I want to take each of these squares, move them from here to here. So now I've got my final answer, 8 4/6. So now let's work backwards and say, what do we want our animation to look like? So I'm going to option drag to duplicate my slide. You can see my second slide. Now I go back and put these shapes where I originally wanted them. So I've got my 4 1/6. Then I'm going to option drag this slide to duplicate it. So I've now got 1, 2, 3 slides, and this is the starting slide. So I'll select all of my options here. I'll put them on top of there, and I'll do the same here. So there's actually multiple objects all sitting on top of each other. So it looks like there's only one set of objects, or only one 2 1/6. But we all know that there's 4 of them that we can see in the second slide. Now, so I've got 4 of these, and we're going to duplicate that or move that across 4 times. Because it's a Magic Move, it's going to know that there are 4 objects there, and it'll automatically add the animations for them. So let's press play and see if this works. So here we've got 2 and 1/6, and we want to multiply it by 4. So we duplicate it 4 times, 4 groups of it, and then our next magic move moves the individuals to group them together, and you can see that our answer now is 8 and 4/6. So on this final slide, what I can do is copy and paste these text boxes to make my answer 8 and 4/6. And because this object is only on this slide, not on this slide, it will appear as part of my magic move. So it just simplifies adding those sort of animations. You don't have to animate individual objects. You can work backwards from what you want to where you started from, and you can see the animations automatically happen. Let's try it out. 2 and 1/6 multiplied by 4. We'll make 4 copies of our fraction, and then we'll group the 1/6 together, which end up being 8 and 4/6. And then you are a little bit of a simpler way to create your fraction animations. Hopefully you and your students will have fun creating with Keynote.